Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I wanted to spend just a few minutes to speak on a topic that, as of recent, was has been a hot button topic, somewhat even amongst the Muslims. I've heard the topic kicked around, and it's the topic of critical race theory. Critical race theory is largely misunderstood. A lot of it is based on bad information, it's bad sources, and lack of qualified people to teach the topic. Critical race theory is largely taught in graduate school. It's not something that you're going to get in high school. You're going to get in junior high school. My first interaction with critical race theory was in undergrad, and I got a very light, rudimentary introduction to what critical race theory was. And it wasn't until I did my master's degree that I got deeper into it, delved into it, did some reading from various critical race theorists, that I got a better understanding of what it is. I do think that because we have so many people speaking on the topic, that it definitely muddies the water for understanding. But just to sort of lightly touch on it, critical race theory has been around since the 70s. I guess you want to say founder or creator of critical race theory, the most prominent person connected to the origin of critical race theory is Derek Bell. Derek Bell is, or was rather, he was an activist, he was an attorney, and critical race theory was born out of critical legal studies or critical legal theory. Oftentimes, when you hear opponents of critical race theory explain it, the things that they connect to it would make you believe that critical race theory is a belief system, almost like a moral compass or a religion or something like this. And that's far from what it is. Critical race theory is simply a theoretical framework that's used to analyze structural phenomena, right? Critical race theory focuses on racism as a structural phenomenon. Racial relations are much more complex than they were back in the day. Back in the day, it was very overt. Jim Crow, slavery, black codes, black laws. It was more overt. It was easier to see the manifestation of racism and structural oppression. But it's a lot more complex now. It's a lot more subtle. It's embedded into policies. It's embedded into laws. Critical race theory basically, again, is a theoretical framework, and it's a tool to break down to simpler terms how structural racism, how structural oppression works. That's it in a nutshell. Critical theory can be applied to anything. The Latino community, they have critical Latino theory or critical Latino studies. LGBTQ community has their version of critical thought, critical theory connected to their issues. It's a framework that can be used to analyze structural issues. Just to put it in layman's terms, as I write my paper for my dissertation, I am looking at how to apply that theoretical framework to the Muslims in America. Don't think for a second that the Muslims in America don't deal with structural issues, structural oppressions. So using critical race theory as a theoretical framework for what I'm researching concerning African American Muslims gives me a basis to, or lens, in which to view the structural aspects that we as African American Muslims deal with. So it's not a religion, it's not a moral compass, it's not some of these things that you'll hear. It does not teach hating white people. That's garbage. And one thing that I will say is anything that speaks to questioning, critiquing, analyzing, looking at the system, disrupting the status quo, educating the masses of the people about their situation and why their situation is the way that it is, you're going to have opponents to it. You're going to have those who want to maintain the status quo. They want to keep it the way it is. They want to have the upper hand. So they're always going to come out against whatever it is that is going to educate the people about their situation and possibly disrupt the status quo. Critical race theory has been around since the 70s. It's not a brand new theory. It's not something new. It's been around for quite a while. So it's interesting that now critical race theory is this hot button topic. One of the key components to critical race theory is interest convergence. Interest convergence, and this is Derek Bell. He's the one who, this is the thought process of Derek Bell. He says that the main way that people of color, black people, he's speaking in reference to black people, gain any level of equality in the society is through interest convergence, meaning the interest of the African Americans converges with the interest of the white power structure, and then the white power structure will then capitulate or give to some degree something to the African American community. But it's only because of the interest convergence. Our interests cross paths with their interests. There's something that's advantageous to them. They benefit by some way. Personally, this is not Derek Bell, this is me. I personally believe that there is an interest convergence, not necessarily based on them gaining anything from it, but from them not losing what they currently have. If you look at Martin Luther King and Malcolm X as just a simple example, Martin Luther King, pacifist almost, turn the other cheek, all that. Malcolm X was more like, if you put your hands on me, we're going to have a problem. I am as nonviolent as you allow me to be. Right? The power structure during that time had to make a choice. They had to support one or the other. Which one would be in their best interest? Not that they necessarily gained anything from it, but who would they more than likely take a L with if they supported him? So they went with Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was nonviolent, no rioting, no destruction of property. Let's sit at the table and talk. Malcolm wasn't really getting down like that. So they supported Martin over Malcolm. They had to make a choice. And there was an interest convergence there. They don't want the cities burned to the ground. They don't want rioting. They don't want all the fighting. They don't want the mentality that Malcolm X had to be transferred to the masses of African Americans. They would rather have Martin Luther King's mentality, his spirit, his character transferred to the people. The people will be docile. The people will be calm, and all of that. So I understand that to be an example, just one example of interest convergence. Interest convergence, I think, is it's a true concept. I believe it. I believe it to be true, and it does have an application to the Muslim community, which I can speak on that in a different video. But I'm just going to make this one short and sweet. Everybody have a good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.